There are only three kinds of darkness that rule the human mind. Three masks, and one of them already owns you. The narcissist, the Machiavellian, the psychopath. Most people think these types exist out there, in toxic bosses, cruel lovers, or ruthless leaders. But the truth is far more unsettling. They exist in you. Every time you manipulate to protect your image, every time you hide behind charm to control the outcome, every time you feel nothing just to survive, one of these dark types is driving the wheel. Psychology calls them the Dark Triad, but in reality, they're just three stages of the same disease, the corruption of the ego. Some people stay stuck in the mirror, craving admiration. Some learn to control love and call it strategy, and a few lose their humanity entirely. So before you decide which one you are, ask yourself, when you look in the mirror, are you the one watching or the one being watched? First, the narcissist. The wounded mirror, narcissism and the addiction to admiration. It always begins the same way. With a wound so deep, the person spends the rest of their life pretending it doesn't exist. A child who was never truly seen, or a child who was only seen when performing. That's how the first mask is born, the narcissist. He learns early that love is conditional, that affection comes when he shines, and silence comes when he's ordinary. So he builds a new self, one that glows just enough to be noticed. He becomes the good boy, the golden girl, the achiever, the entertainer, anything but invisible. And for a while, it works. The world claps, the mirror smiles back. But every applause hides a truth he can't face. He doesn't love himself. He loves the reflection others give him. You can see this everywhere now, in people who mistake attention for connection. They post, they perform, they curate every moment like a product on display. They don't feel alive until someone else is watching. But underneath all the confidence and polish, there's a quiet terror, the fear that if the world ever looks away, they'll vanish. That's why the narcissist can't stop chasing admiration. It's not vanity, it's survival. Because without an audience, he feels like nothing. He doesn't crave love, he craves evidence that he exists. And that craving is endless. He'll charm you, impress you, outshine you, not to connect, but to fill the silence inside. Yet no matter how much validation he gathers, it leaks through the cracks of that old wound. One insult and he collapses. One rejection and he burns the bridge. He'll do anything to restore the reflection. Because behind every narcissist's smile is a child still calling from the dark. Do you see me now? And the cruel truth is, the louder he shouts, the further he drifts from the only person who could truly himself. The birth of strategy. When the narcissist learns to control love. There comes a moment when admiration is no longer enough. The applause fades faster, the praise stops satisfying, and the narcissist begins to sense a terrifying truth. If he depends on love, he can be destroyed by it. That's when something inside him shifts. The performer becomes the strategist. He stops chasing admiration and starts studying it. Every compliment, every gesture, every silence, he begins to calculate them like moves on a chessboard. He learns that power comes not from being adored, but from controlling who adores him. He perfects timing. He withholds affection to increase value. He learns how to mirror your desires, to become what you most want to see. And in doing so, he makes you depend on him. What once was desperation turns into design. His charm becomes a tool. His vulnerability becomes bait. This is how the narcissist evolves into the Machiavellian. From the outside, he seems calm, confident, in control. But underneath, the same wound still bleeds, only now it's hidden behind strategy. He doesn't trust love anymore, because love once made him weak. So he replaces it with control, with structure, with manipulation so refined it feels almost natural. He tells himself he's just being smart, protecting his heart, managing emotions, playing the game better than anyone else. But deep down, he knows the truth. He no longer loves. He manages affection. He no longer connects. He negotiates loyalty. And while the world mistakes his precision for power, what really drives him is fear. Fear of ever being at someone's mercy again. It's a clever transformation, from craving admiration to controlling it. But it's also the moment where the soul begins to harden, because every time he wins, he loses a little more of what once made him human. Second, the Machiavellian. The cold strategist, the psychology of the Machiavellian mind. He no longer walks into a room seeking attention. He walks in to measure it. While others talk, he listens. While others try to impress, he observes. Every word, every gesture, every weakness becomes data, information to be filed away for future use. To him, people are no longer unpredictable forces of emotion. They are patterns, predictable, measurable, usable. He has learned that emotion clouds judgment, that attachment dulls perception. So he trains himself to feel less, not because he lacks emotion, but because he refuses to be ruled by it. He calls it discipline. The world calls it confidence. But what it truly is distance. The Machiavellian's greatest weapon isn't charm or dominance, it's restraint. He knows when to speak, when to disappear, when to let others believe they're in control. He studies the battlefield of human behavior like a general, silent, patient, calculating. He doesn't fight for victory, he positions for inevitability. And yet this mastery comes with a cost. In his pursuit of control, he starts to mistrust everything, even loyalty, even love. He tests those who care for him, not to see if they'll stay, but to prove they'll eventually betray him. Because deep down, he's already certain they will. To him, visibility is vulnerability. So he hides, behind intellect, behind irony, behind strategy. Every emotion becomes a liability. Every relationship a potential threat. He lives by one quiet rule: never give anyone the weapon that could destroy you. And it works. He wins, he ascends, he commands. But when the world sleeps and the mask finally slips, he feels the silence again, the same silence the narcissist once feared. Only this time, it's colder, because he's not just unseen now, he's untouchable. The fall into emptiness, when control replaces meaning. At first, control feels like peace. When nothing surprises you, nothing can hurt you. When no one can reach you, no one can betray you. That's what he tells himself. The Machiavellian sleeps soundly in the armor he built. But eventually, even the armor begins to suffocate. He wins every game, outthinks every rival, manipulates every outcome. And yet, he starts to feel nothing. No pride, no joy, no warmth. Because control, when absolute, kills everything it touches. This is the point where his victories begin to taste like ash. He realizes he's surrounded by people who obey him, respect him, even fear him, but not a single soul who truly knows him. He has mastered the game, but forgotten the reason he started playing. The world bows, yet he feels smaller than ever. Psychologists call it emotional depletion. Jung called it possession by the shadow. When a man becomes so consumed by his mask that the mask devours what's left of him. And you can see it in his eyes, the dullness that replaces fire, the quiet calculation that used to be passion. He's not alive anymore. He's simply maintaining equilibrium. But even the most disciplined mind begins to crack under emptiness, because the human soul is not built to live without meaning. He thought control would set him free, but it only built a colder prison, one with no mirrors, no applause, and no light. Sooner or later, he faces the question every strategist fears. If I've won everything I planned for, why does it feel like loss? That's the moment the fall begins, not into chaos, but into nothingness. And from that void, a new darkness awakens, one that no longer plans, no longer hesitates, and no longer cares. The psychopath. The final stage, the psychopath and the death of empathy. This is where the game ends and something far colder begins. When the need for admiration dies and even the desire for control fades, what remains is pure will, unfeeling, unbound, and unrestrained. The psychopath doesn't calculate, he acts. He doesn't manipulate for love or strategy. He moves because nothing in him resists movement. No guilt, no hesitation, no echo of conscience to slow the blade. He's detached not in the way monks are detached, but in the way storms are detached. Merciless, automatic, necessary only to themselves. He can look into another person's eyes and see not a soul, but a variable. He mimics emotion flawlessly, the smile, the empathy, the apology. But behind his eyes, there's a silence so complete, it feels like absence. To him, morality is a costume the weak wear to feel safe. Limits are suggestions, consequences are fiction. And that's why he thrives in chaos. While others hesitate, he moves. While others drown in fear, he breathes it in. Because where others feel conflict, he feels nothing. And nothing is terrifyingly efficient. In collapsing empathy, he becomes unstoppable, but also untouchable. He may conquer, intimidate, even inspire awe, but no one truly stands beside him. He doesn't connect, he consumes. He doesn't lead, he dominates. And when there are no more enemies to defeat, no more rules to break, he discovers the one thing he can't destroy, the void inside himself. That's the final irony. The man who sought freedom from pain has now escaped everything that made him human. He's not alive, he's operational. He's not powerful, he's hollow. And in that hollow space where conscience once lived, you can almost hear the last whisper of what he used to be. Not a monster, but a man who once just wanted to be seen. The path of integration. How to master the shadow instead of becoming it. Every descent eventually reaches a point where the darkness stops expanding and begins to echo. It's the moment when a man looks around and realizes there's no one left to outsmart, no one left to conquer, and nothing left to prove. The silence that once felt like victory now feels like exposure. And in that stillness, a quiet truth begins to surface. He hasn't been fighting the world, he's been fighting himself. This is where the path of integration begins, not with triumph, but with surrender. To master the shadow, you must stop running from it. You must turn toward the very darkness you've spent your life denying. The narcissist must face the wound that birthed him, the hunger to be seen. The Machiavellian must confront his fear of vulnerability, the terror of being known. And the psychopath must face the void he mistook for strength, the absence of feeling he called peace. Integration doesn't mean purification. It means balance. It means realizing that the shadow isn't your enemy, it's your untrained power. The rage you buried can become discipline. The manipulation you perfected can become strategy in service of purpose. The detachment you once used to hurt others can become clarity in times of chaos, but only when you see clearly which part of you is in control. Jung said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." To integrate the shadow is to descend willingly, not as a victim, but as a witness. To look at your own capacity for cruelty, control, and deceit, and instead of denying it, to say, "Yes, that too is me, and I will not let it rule me." Because the true power was never in the mask, it was in the man who had the courage to take it off. And once he does, the shadow no longer hunts him. It stands beside him, disciplined, silent, and ready to serve. Awakening the sovereign self. Detachment as true freedom. When the shadow is finally faced, not conquered, not destroyed, but understood, something extraordinary happens. A new kind of silence emerges. Not the cold silence of emptiness, but the calm silence of awareness. The man who once performed for admiration, who calculated for control, who detached to dominate, now stands still, not because he has nothing left to chase, but because he no longer needs to. This is detachment in its truest form. Not indifference, not numbness, but the freedom to act without being enslaved by reaction. He no longer needs to prove his worth through applause or victory. He no longer manipulates to feel safe. He simply is. You can recognize this kind of presence when you see it. There's a gravity to it, quiet, steady, unshakable. It doesn't demand attention, yet it commands it. Because real power doesn't shout, it emanates. It comes from a man who has met every corner of himself, light and dark, and no longer flinches. He can love without losing himself. He can lead without needing to be followed. He can walk away from anything, not out of pride, but out of clarity. His detachment isn't an escape from emotion, it's mastery over it. He feels deeply, but nothing owns him anymore. That's what the ancient teachers called sovereignty, the state in which your mind, your instincts, and your emotions obey you, not society, not approval, not fear. This is what the journey through darkness was for all along, not to become untouchable, but to become whole. Because freedom isn't found in isolation or control, it's found in awareness. And awareness, when fully awakened, is what makes a man unshakable, uncorrupted, and finally, free. If this video resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. Don't forget to subscribe to The Archetype for more deep dives into the hidden layers of the human psyche. Until next time, stay curious, stay conscious.